Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to another episode of the Talkroom series of podcasts, where we look at the question of how to be your best self. We do that by looking at mental health and well-being and how this applies to everybody's lives. So those people who haven't seen any of our previous podcasts, I would like to introduce my co-presenter, Ian. Ian is a senior accredited member of the National Counselling Society and the founder member of Hope Therapy and Counselling Services, a counselling practice that operates throughout the south of England.
Thank you, Wendy. And to introduce you, you're a highly experienced CBT psychotherapist working in private practice and has been involved more generally in the field of mental health for well over 30 years now. I also want to thank two members of the LGBTQ plus community who've been absolutely instrumental in helping with the research of today's podcast. So a huge thank you to the two of them as well.
Thank you. So Ian, I know that today's subject of LGBTQ plus is an area of Hope does a lot of work with, and also you feel very passionately about ensuring that community members are receiving the right level of support. So I wonder if you could start by explaining to people, what do we mean by LGBTQ plus?
Of course, thank you, Wendy. So the LGBTQ plus community encompasses a broad spectrum of individuals identifying as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and a lot more. It's a really vibrant and diverse community that has fought for acceptance, for equal rights and visibility for many, many years. Hope Therapy and Counselling regularly work with members of this particular community.
Okay, that sounds fabulous, Ian, and thanks for introducing that. So I wonder if we could start by talking a little bit about how people might first realise that they identify as part of this community and what that is like.
Of course, so many members of the community begin their journey by questioning their feelings and experiences. They may notice a disconnect between their own feelings and societal expectations surrounding typical gender roles, attractions, or expectations of romantic relationships. This internal questioning can prompt people to start on a path of self reflection and a desire for self understanding. As people explore those identities, they may realise that their feelings and attractions differ from what they perceive to be societal norms. For example, someone assigned male at birth may recognise that they have a romantic or a sexual attraction to people of the same gender. At Hope, we often notice that sort of acknowledgement within client work, which can mark a significant step towards self-discovery for that particular client.
So, so once people notice that difference, what tends to happen then?
Well, that can be different for everyone, but often with clients, we hear that they can go through a process of trying to understand. That might involve information gathering, getting support from a variety of different sources, but could involve researching online, reading books or articles, or connecting with supportive communities or organisations. Often people find that gathering knowledge and learning about the experiences of others can help provide a level of comfort and a level of validation for themselves as well.
Yes, I could see how that quest for understanding and acceptance, it could be really important to someone who's just starting to understand their own personal uniqueness and how it relates to both gender and sexual identity. So, Ian, we often hear the phrase coming out. Can you say a little bit more about that? What does that mean? And what sort of experiences that you hear clients talk about there?
Well, the first thing to say is that there's no one way or right way to come out. For many members of the community, it's a really important milestone in the process of self acceptance and living an authentic life. It's the point that not only have they recognised their own individuality, but they've reached out to others and shares that individuality with them as well. And it can vary in timing, it can vary in approach, as each person will find their own way of doing it when they feel ready and safe to do it. And that will be based on their own uniqueness, their own individuality.
Okay. So, could you tell us a little bit more about what you think the significant issues are when people think of coming out?
The first thing people often say they need to do is to come out to themselves. Um, the total realization that you are not heterosexual can take time to reach for many people. There really is no right or wrong as far as that's concerned. Then there can be the dilemma of who to tell first. How will they react? Will they be supported or will they be shunned? What are the consequences of coming out? And all of those questions for many people can create a huge amount of anxiety for the individual.
And so, do you think everyone shares similar experiences of coming out, in your opinion?
So it's an entirely personal experience. Interestingly, community members will often say that they go through life coming out every time they meet somebody new. If a man, for example, mentions the fact that they have a husband, then in effect they've just come out to that person that they're speaking to. So there's that ongoing continual process of coming out that many people recognize and talk about.
Thank you for that, Ian. That's a really fascinating explanation. And I'm wondering whether that, in some ways, is the start of the journey for many people, not the end. Is
Oh,
that
absolutely, absolutely. So for many people, it really is just a milestone in a lifelong process of growth and exploration. Members of the community that get to that point continue to learn, continue to grow, and discover their unique identities throughout their lives in exactly the same way that someone not within the community might. That journey may involve who they are as individuals, building relationships, and finding support networks. These things often continue to evolve as life goes on.
okay? So, thank you for that, Ian. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about the common things that people suffer from within the community and why they might come to Hope Therapy and Counselling Services in need of support with.
Yeah, the figures give a really good indication of the type of issues that clients may present with. Some figures show that approximately 61% of members of the community will struggle with depression compared to a general level of 3.5% of the population. 36% dealing with some form of anxiety compared to 18% of adults, and 45% of people identifying as LGBT can report struggling with some sort of symptoms associated with PTSD, and that compares to 3.6% overall. And the most startling figure with some research, says that 40% of the transgender community have considered suicide at some point.
Wow, those numbers are really staggering, aren't they? Um, and why do you think they're so high within the community?
Well, there's no simple one answer, but stigma, trauma, and what some people describe as an imposed sense of shame can often contribute to those things. Growing up feeling different, feeling marginalised, can have a profound impact on individuals. It becomes completely internalised for so many people.
Yes, and I really do get a sense of that and what that must feel like for individuals. Um, and are you able to say what the main impact of that internalization is?
Well, we often hear clients say that it's knowing something is different about you, but being unable, for a whole variety of reasons, to speak about it or feel supported through it, that sense of isolation can create fear for many.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. And could you perhaps elaborate more on what the fear means and how it applies in this particular context?
So people often talk about how the fear of being different can be tough when they're growing up. Fear of being found out for some people, fear of disappointing family or disappointing friends, fear of rejection, fear of the pain that differences can cause, and fear for the future. All of that can cause many people to experience that generic term that we call fear. And people might also experience trauma, plus physical or emotional bullying, particularly throughout childhood, the time when we normally feel incredibly vulnerable anyway. It can really have a devastating and long term impact on so many people. And nowadays, cyberbullying as well is also increasing and is almost impossible to completely control and completely remedy. It goes on often unnoticed by parents and by teachers. So it really can be hard to protect yourself even when you're at home, which should be your safe place.
Yes, and you have covered so much there, Ian. Thank you for that. Um, and I was just wondering, what is the most common issue clients from the community tend to bring to you?
Well, the feedback that we often get is often it's in some way associated with an imposed sense of shame. And there can be many reasons why people from the community might experience that. It can arise within areas such as family prejudice, religious prejudice, prejudice within the community that they grow up in. For example, if a person who identifies as a gay male feels that their interests or their tastes and their pastimes don't relate to the straight men in their family, then this male could feel a sense of shame that they don't fit in with the straight male dynamic that they're brought up in, and that reinforcement of difference and its associated prejudice can be hugely damaging for many people, especially if there's nowhere they're able to get validation of who they actually are.
Yes, Ian. And what you say really stresses the importance of healthy relationships to counteract the dysfunctional experiences people may have had in areas of their lives. And I suppose this could apply both in terms of building a healthy support structure around you, and maybe the need to ensure that any potential partner will also be supportive and accepting of who you are as well.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. And so building and maintaining healthy relationships is essential for everyone and can be even more important for many members of the LGBTQ plus community due to the lack of acceptance that they may have already experienced previously in life. So healthy relationships can provide a sense of space where community members can feel validated and accepted. Understanding and supportive relationships and friendships can be absolutely invaluable for people who may have experienced stigmatization or been marginalized because of their identity. It can help create a sense of belonging and reinforce that sense of self-worth. Healthy friendships and relationships also provide a supportive environment for community members to explore and embrace their identities. And it's important that people can freely express their authentic selves without fear of judgment. That exploration or support network that we get when we know that we have a supportive partner, and being able to rely on that during difficult times can really increase our ability to cope with the challenges that we may face in life.
So, having come out and decided to live your life in a way that is right for them, and I'm wondering what hurdles there are for them around this community, around dating and relationships. Could you say a little bit more about that, Ian?
Well, it's probably as much a minefield in the LGBTQ plus environment as it is within the heterosexual world. I'd expect the same types of anxiety around confidence and self-esteem. However, social media has done an absolutely terrible job of informing us of how people should look and feel and behave as well.
Okay. And are the relationship pressures different in the LGBT plus community, would you say?
Relationships can have different pressures depending on the person's orientation, which may not be there in a typical heterosexual partnership. It's essential to be able to share thoughts and feelings and concerns to help people just to navigate any challenges that may arise due to societal biases or other cultural factors that may impact them. The important thing is to ensure there is balance and equity within any relationship, and at its heart it's the ability to be able to communicate within the relationship as well.
Okay. That's really interesting. Thank you, Ian, for that. And I'm just wondering if we could widen that out a little bit more. I mean, what would you say are the most common family problems within the community?
Well, that really does depend on the family. Acceptance and understanding are the two main things we all want from our families. However, being a community member doesn't always allow for that, particularly if mother or father rejects you, if they can't understand or if they can't accept the choices, or they can't accept who we are as individuals.
No, I mean, Ian, I'm wondering if someone is rejected or not accepted, I mean, how would this impact them? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, for some, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to depression. We even have research saying that it can impact in terms of the likelihood to be homeless, or to struggle with addiction related issues. All of those things can impact people within the workplace, and if younger, within the school environment as well. And there's a number of other issues that can be present alongside of that. It can make or break many individuals. It can create issues around feelings of self-worth and self-confidence. It can leave individuals struggling with feelings of shame as well as of discrimination as well.
Thank you for that, Ian. And I'm just wondering if you could say a little bit more about the types of identity issues that can be created for the LGBTQ community. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah, of course, Wendy. So growing up in any sort of marginalised group can cause issues around identity. That applies to gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, pansexual, along with any other segment of the community. And of course, LGBTQ plus people can learn early that their differences are taboo in some circles, and when talking to certain people or undesirable differences, particularly if they grow up in a family or a community with particularly disaffirming religious beliefs.
And do you believe things have got better? Have they changed in today's society? What do you think about that, Ian?
Well, clients often say that there is a lot more general acceptance than there once was, but that can be a little bit of a double-edged sword sometimes. So, if we take the World Cup in Qatar as an example, we're seeing two sides to this. So, Qatar, where being gay is still very much unaccepted, and then the rest of the world. Um, the teams there were desperately trying to support and stand up for the community. So, depending on where you live in the world, for example, your experiences really can still be absolutely poles apart.
Thank you so much for that, Ian. And you did mention some stats earlier, which maybe aren't surprising based on some of the things you said about the amount of prejudice that this community experiences. Can you expand a little bit more about the types of things people from the community are most likely to reach out for support with?
So, LGBTQ plus individuals are more likely to experience mental health, such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and even suicidal ideation. The impact of societal prejudice and discrimination and minority stress can take a toll on emotional well-being. Recognizing these challenges is absolutely crucial for creating targeted support systems for individuals.
So you've already said that creating supportive environments is really key to promoting mental health issues within this community. Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, do you think?
So, just fostering inclusive spaces, both online and offline spaces, where individuals can feel safe, can feel respected, can feel validated. These things are just so important. Supportive environments reduce feelings of isolation. They provide opportunities for social connection, a sense of social belonging, all of which can help to support mental health, resiliency, access to LGBTQ plus affirming mental health services is absolutely essential for people within the community.
Thank you for that, Ian. So you've covered a lot about the community's challenges there, and I'm just wondering, as a counsellor yourself, could you please just summarise how counselling can support people within this community?
Of course. So maybe the first thing is simply gaining some understanding, some validation. mental health professionals who specialise in LGBTQ plus counselling can have a profound understanding of the challenges faced by the community, such as minority stress, discrimination, and internalised homophobia or transphobia. They can provide validation and empathy, helping individuals feel understood, helping them to feel supported, all of which can be incredibly important for people. The next might be surrounding identity exploration and a sense of self-acceptance. So counselling can assist individuals in exploring their sexual identity, their gender expression in a supportive environment. Counsellors can help individuals navigate the process of self-discovery, that process of self-acceptance and identity integration, fostering a greater sense of self-worth and a greater sense of confidence as they do so. So appropriate counselling can also help people cope with discrimination, with stigma, and as has already been said, experiences of discrimination, prejudice and societal stigma can significantly impact the mental health of people within the community. So counsellors can provide coping strategies, can support people in navigating the challenges that they may have or continue to face, helping individuals build resilience, develop healthy coping mechanisms, and just challenge internalized negative beliefs that may have built up. Proper counselling can also help community members work through relationships and family dynamics. Counsellors can help individuals communicate effectively, to set boundaries, to navigate difficult conversations. They can also provide support for coming out to family members, or coping with the unsupportive reaction that some people may give. And maybe the last thing is surrounding just working with mental health issues themselves. Community members may be more vulnerable to mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, substance abuse and suicidal ideation. So counsellors can support assessment and diagnoses and offer evidence-based treatments to support those conditions as well. So there's an awful lot that can be offered.
Absolutely. Thank you for describing that, Ian. That was amazing. So thank you for that. And I'm just wondering if community members want to know more or reach out for help, how can they do that?
Well, Hope has therapists and counsellors from within the LGBTQ plus community, as well as LGBTQ plus affirmative allies working within it. We recognise that clients from within the community may often feel more comfortable either seeing a therapist from within the community, or at least knowing that their counsellor will know and understand the issues that are involved when clients come to them. So people are incredibly welcome to take a look at our website, www.hopefulminds.co.uk, LGBTQ-counselling. We've got a whole variety of different resources on there. We have blog posts, we have infographics, all of which are completely free of charge. And of course, we have a whole team of counsellors who are hugely experienced at working with these types of issues. And of course, you too, Wendy, a hugely experienced CBT psychotherapist who's worked with numerous people from within the community over the years. So maybe you could just tell people a little bit about yourself and how they might reach out to you as well.
Yeah, Yes, thank you for that, Ian. Yes, so my website is called wendytherapy.co.uk, and you're very welcome to get in touch with me for any of the issues mentioned above. And I specialise really in trauma-based issues. So if any person wants to know more about my work in trauma, then that's probably the best way to get hold of me. So I just want to thank you, Ian, for the most amazing description you gave for us today, and thank you so much for telling us how much more we can get hold of you and how much more information there is. So I just want to thank you from me and all our listeners there, and I look forward to working with you again in our next episode. And would you like to say anything to our listeners?
Just a fantastic thank you to you, Wendy, as always. As I said earlier, we were assisted today by two members of the community who worked so incredibly hard in helping us to research the subject. So a fantastic thank you to the two of them, and a thank you to everybody for listening and watching. And the next episode is going to be about panic disorder. So hopefully people will come back and listen to that as well.